Welcome to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education, a podcast that focuses on what is happening in education today, connecting everyone to the movers and shakers that are breaking boundaries in the education arena.
Welcome to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education. You know that we are AI junkies over here, and I really stick to LinkedIn. That's really where I follow just some amazing people. But the person that we have on today, Jerry, I follow, and I always wonder why I really just gravitate toward his content. And I think it's because he is a teacher, and it makes all the difference when you are actually talking about great things you can do in AI that are innovative yet practical. And so I'm looking forward to hearing some of his tips and tricks today.
Oh, I am excited to hear from Jack. And I think you're right. Whenever someone is in the classroom working with students, I really value what they have to say because they are boots on the ground making it happen. Jack, welcome to the LinkedUp podcast.
Nice to meet you both.
We are all three in New Jersey today, and it is windy and cold. Where are you coming to us from?
I'm coming from Gran Canaria, which is in the Canary Islands, which are little islands owned by Spain, and it's not windy and cold. I'm going to be very smug. It's about 26 degrees here. 26 degrees Celsius. Sorry, I forgot American audience. Yeah, that was confusing, wasn't it? No, it's warm and it's suntan weather, and that's winter. That's why I'm here. It's a brilliant climate all year round. Kind of Californian, but perhaps even arguably a little bit better. Summer's not too hot and winter's not too cold. Yeah, warm water.
Oh my gosh.
Cheapness.
But you're originally from the UK's?
I am. You can hear by my accent, yes.
Yeah.
But it's too cold. So I escaped.
You're a surfer, right?
I am. Yeah, that is it. Originally a competitive surfer, which everyone goes, what? Are there waves in the UK? But yes, there are. So I'm a bit boring and we're off topic. But yeah, I competed and was sort of semi-professional. I think I'm probably the worst surfer to ever get paid. I could sell a good story and travel a lot. I could confidently lost most of my competitions, but somehow managed to blag somewhat of a career. And then that took me over to the Canary Islands to warm water. But a teacher through and through, all through it. But as I say, a surfer, but not so much surfing these days.
Yeah. What do you teach?
Humanities originally, but moved into being more business studies teacher. But I teach in a British international school, as you say, from the UK. So I teach IGCSEs and A-levels and IB as well, although I've just moved school and they don't do the IB currently. But the IB is the one you're probably most familiar with.
Right.
Yeah, I love IB. I love IB.
So I've done a bit of all.
I know that there are a lot of AI experts out there, and so I think I heard you say, like, you try to refrain from calling yourself an AI expert. We're all just kind of learning all this together. But like I said, you really have great strategies for practical usage in the classroom, innovative still. How did you find this path for yourself? Obviously we're all intrigued, right? So I think it probably started there. And then did it just like blow your mind and realize, wow, there are things that I can really do beyond, kids cheating, right? We're past that conversation. So how did this kind of evolve for you?
It's a big story. Coming from teaching, it's not just me that's a teacher, my whole family are teachers. And when COVID happened, that was a real frustration for me. Living on the islands where I do, Britain had a system to catch people up. And I got really frustrated that there was nothing at my school to catch up the children on all the work that was missed. I know America did various systems, maybe not so effectively, but there was a system to catch up. I was really frustrated. There was no system. And I thought, well, I'm going to try and do it. I'm going to try and solve this problem. And I set up a peer tutoring company to get children help outside of the school day. And I set it up Ecmtutors. And about 2.5 years ago, it was a social enterprise. So not quite a charity, but essentially I was trying to get free peer tutoring to children outside of the school day. And that kind of worked. It gave over like 1,000 free lessons to children from international schools and ended up being quite a big thing. But at the same time, I didn't want to get out of teaching because I love teaching. I actually like being in the classroom. But hugely busy, of course, running this company and doing it. So when generative AI appeared on the scene, ChatGPT, I was looking to it for a tool for efficiency. I was going, well, hang on, I'm so busy here. I need some help. So I embraced it thoroughly personally. And on the way, straight, as soon as it appeared, I was looking to it for efficiency. And then I realized that this isn't just a tool for efficiency, it's a tool for efficacy as well. As I wrote an article straight away on splitting the difference, which went in the ISTE, they published it. And I said, I think people are missing a trick here. Right from early days, they're thinking that it's all about efficiency. When you can use it for that, it's great for that. But it also can make you much better at things. Not quicker, but if you use it as a collaborator, it can make you much better. Because of that, I went, well, hang on, it's got a place in education. And then I was like, well, let's try this in the classroom. Let's put it into the classroom. I was testing it out right in the early days, and I just thought, no, this is incredible. This is incredible as a learning tool. And you say expert. Yeah, I mean, I spoke at UNESCO, the UN side of education. I spoke with the UNESCO there under the title of expert, but that is a bit ridiculous. As I say, we're all learning. And especially when I come from a background of humanities and business studies and not tech, not computers, you can say, well, how would you be an expert? But again, that was my mission. And I like that message that you could kind of be considered an expert even without a computer background, because my whole point from the start that I was shouting out, this is ChatGPT, not prompt GPT. We talk, we use natural language with it. We're not using this prompt engineering that scares so many teachers off and scared me off. If I was just only reading the articles, I go, forget it. I don't want anything to do with this ed tech prompt engineering. But my real use was going, well, I'm not prompt engineering. I'm just talking. Right from day one, that was the article. I type in, it writes back, I write back, and I use the humanities skills as a collaborator. And that's how you get useful stuff coming out. So I wrote articles about it. I was using it with children, and then it's kind of spiraled from there. And then interestingly, my objective of the social enterprise was to get people help outside of the school day. And then AI kind of filled that gap. The aim that I was trying to meet. Yes, peer tutoring is still fantastic, but then this thing has arrived while I'm running it. This can help children, and all children here, that we don't have to pay for ChatGPT. And I know it's more than ChatGPT, but ChatGPT is the one that my children use. It's absolutely free. And now I'm obsessed with the GPTs within ChatGPT that you can share with a teacher. I just love those, that I can create them myself. And I can get these children help outside of the school day, which to me is so important, because I was lucky. I had that from my parents. And now I'm even taking it through the social enterprise to schools in Malawi who are getting connected and working with a company. So we've got schools in Malawi who are recently connected to the internet with a company. I'm saying, well, you get them internet. I will show them how to use ChatGPT. Absolutely free. You don't need to pay for anything. And the advance that you can therefore have, a school that didn't have internet is now going into a school that is missing the stages of just early days Google, straight into OpenAI. So I'm super excited about that. And I'm trying to deliver that across that with this company. So taking it out into newly connected communities. That was a long answer, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, that's good.
Hey,
That's
Jack,
good.
can you give us an example of how it is helping students?
Yeah, so many ways. How is it not? Let's go controversial. I was thinking about what do we say? So we didn't have much of a plan of what we're doing. So I'm going to go controversial. I'm going to say, I think, controversially, that so many educators are cynical of AI because of the fundamental flaw in education as I see it. That teachers are asked to summarize, particularly in the American system. They're asked to perform summative assessment. And I hate that about being a teacher. This is where I'm confident. I didn't sign up to being a teacher to summarize children. I signed up to be a formative educator. That's the bit of my job that I like. I like helping children. I like teaching children. And I'm pretty lucky in the British system, the IGCSEs and A-levels. I don't do any summation, pretty much. I'm not in charge of that. That I train those children. I am their ally. And at the end of it, they have an external exam marked by someone else, which I love.
Yeah.
Marked by someone else. I have no say. I'm not legally allowed in the exam room. I'm not allowed to see it, and I'm not allowed to see the exam paper that they've written ever. I'm not even allowed to see the questions until till 2 days after it's been sat. All of that is great because that makes me firmly their ally. And therefore, I'm only interested in formative education. Even when I set a test, and you can say there is formative assessment, but to me, my tests are about preparing them for this evil external summative exam. Now, I know in the American system, it's not, I don't know too much about it, but I think there is still quite a lot of pressure on the teacher to have to give the summative grade at the end of it.
Mhm.
Oh, that is crazy to me. That's like saying, I'm going to be the defense lawyer, but I'm also going to be the judge. I
Right.
don't want to be the
Right.
judge.
Good point.
I want to be the defense lawyer. I just want a team. I didn't get into teaching to be the enemy. I wanted to be the ally. How does that relate to your question? I drifted off massively. But how does that relate to, I think most of the concerns I see, and I know there will be far more concerns and I'm going to upset, but most of the concerns teachers have are good concerns, and most people are cynical because they're upset about what it's done to the summative side of education.
Yeah.
When you read about it, you know what? Yeah, it's for cheating. Now, when I set homework, they can cheat on their homework. Okay, but I don't really care about summative anyway. I shouldn't give up the benefits of formative education, what it has to offer
Right.
for forming, because of the damage it caused to summarizing. Because,
Right.
in my opinion, it's always been rubbish, summative education done by teachers. It's always been unfair. And that was one of my reasons to set up the tutoring site in the first place. When I send the homework home, now they're cheating with ChatGPT, and that's not fair. When's it ever been fair?
Right.
I went home to 2 parents as teachers.
Parents.
I was
Exactly.
lucky. My parents helped me with my homework. If it was important, my parents helped. Other children have got plenty of money and they can get a private tutor, and IB tutors are like €200 an hour now. That was always, but it's making it easy to cheat. If you had money, cheating on that system wasn't difficult anyway.
Homework should never be graded anyway, so that's
I-
just they're practicing. Why would you grade that? That just
That's
should inform
my
us to
argument.
go along that summative journey, like you were talking about. So
Yes, I'm using it formatively. I say to
Yeah.
my children, all of this, how do you stop them cheating? And how is it helpful? Cheat if you want, but why do you want to cheat? Because I'm your ally, and I only want to know what you can understand. When I set work for you, I want to figure out what you've done, what you understand. But if you trick me into saying you understand something, good luck, because when you come to the summative exam, the IGCSE and the A-level, you can't take your computer, you can't check ChatGPT, and you just lost your only ally. So I don't really have a problem with this cheating side of things. So I can say, go and do your homework and be sensible. Use ChatGPT if you want, but use it as a learning tool. If you
Yeah.
want to go and cheat with your homework, good luck, but you've lost me, and I'm not your enemy. I say it over and over. I'm back teaching today, and that's how I finish my lessons with my year 12s. I'm not your enemy. Oh, but he used ChatGPT. Unlucky, because now he's not going to get good feedback. You've just wasted the feedback because I'm going to spend
Yeah.
half an hour marking it, and now you've just wasted that time. So I think it's amazing for all of those formative, but you asked me a specific question. So the GPTs, for example, how am I using that to help? Let's go for that one.
Yeah.
So I can set up knowledge GPTs in the lowest form. That's a really simple one. But in
Mhm.
business studies, for example, in the A-level, exams, the external exams, they do have good skills within them. It's easy to be cynical and they say they don't do any critical thinking. I think they do. There's a sizable percentage of the exams where they need to have analysis, they need to have evaluation. That's a high level skill. But there is a fundamental core that they need knowledge. They need to know definitions. They need to know what those words mean. It's a low level skill, Bloom's taxonomy. It's the bottom level, but it's an essential skill. If you don't know what the key term means, you can't evaluate and have an opinion. I can offload that knowledge skill now to GPTs, that I can set up a GPT using my syllabus, and that's what I've set up. So I've set them up not only for that, but this is just the easiest use of it. And I set the GPT to say, this is the syllabus. These are all the things they know. Whenever the child logs onto my GPT, ask them 5 knowledge questions. Low-level skills, define these words or 2 limitations of a private limited company. It does that. It can then mark that very effectively because it's only low-level knowledge skills. It can mark that. And I know that's cynical. Oh, you're not doing the marking. But then what is the brilliant part of these GPTs that I now love? Because they don't need an account for that. That's free. They then share that chat back with me. And that's what I'm doing on my Google Classroom. So I'm setting that as saying, I want you to spend 20 minutes with this knowledge, and then I want you to share that chat. And I'm looking over their chat because it's important for me to still see how they're getting on.
Right.
Now, in all of this, that's not me offloading my marking, Because at the same time, that's a low-level homework task. And what I'm doing in my lessons, I'm saying every week now, I expect you to engage 20 minutes with a GPT, low level. But at the same time, I'm still setting the evaluation essays and I'm marking them by hand. I'm not trying to offload, but that gives me extra time that previously I don't have time in a busy teaching to set 5 knowledge questions every week. But I can just tick that knowledge over now with really minimal input from me. All I just scan it. And I know lots of ed tech companies that it will save time. Most of the time I find they're lying. It doesn't. But this one really is saving me time. And I'm not paid to say this, of course, but I really am able to tick that knowledge. And that's low level, on top of which I can get it to create examples of, they have to have application or analysis. I can get them to bicker. So higher level skills, I wouldn't give them a part paper, but I've got a business bickerer. So whenever they've got an opinion, because they have to evaluate in the exam, if it says, should John expand his business, they can put it into my business bickerer GPT. They can upload the question and they have to give an opinion and it will argue back with them. It will say, well, you're wrong. That's learning critical thinking. So it's not telling them the answer. And again, they do it, they hand in the chat, and I just get it to argue. So it's learning. So you've got the low level knowledge skills, but you've also got critical thinking, arguing with it. It's just designed to argue within the the GPT is great because it's within the confines of my syllabus, not at degree level. It doesn't say, okay, there's a flaw in your argument because I can say, upload the syllabus. This is the level that we need to pitch the argument at. And it does it. And I can check. So I just think it's incredible. I think it's a really good tool at the moment. Does that answer? Too much talking. Sorry.
It does. And I love that I love this bickering concept. You compare it to debating. So if you had each students do a debate, it would be an authentic form of assessment because you are able to observe and listen in. And now you're able to do that for each individual student with this GPT. It streamlines the process and it actually prepares them for a real scenario in a real world because look, this is the sort of thing they're going to be doing in the real world. It's authentic and it's allowing you to eavesdrop on their thinking processes. What better way to guide student learning?
And easily accessible because they can do it from their phone. They can do it on their bus. A lot of my children have long commutes. So they can just do it quickly. I say, I'm not asked, you don't have to do it. This is an extra on, there's set homework. But this is just to help you. And you choose which, because I've got on my website, I've got lots. I've got knowledge GPTs, application. I say you choose which one is helpful because it's your exam. I'm just setting it up to help. But you've got to give me a chat to look at. So it really gives them ownership over that time of what they're going to have access. I'm happy with Unit 1 knowledge. I want to look at Unit 2. Actually, I need some more practice on my analysis. I want to argue back and forth. And on top of that, with the GPTs, just going back, even then there's a whole other route that I can then make personalized ones because it doesn't really take very long to make them. Yeah, I make personalized ones. So we've got children who are disengaged, but I live in Spain, so they're obsessed with Real Madrid. You can make it so it explains all of the concepts, linking it back to Real Madrid football. That's a football team. But, it's super quick. And so I can make a GPT for specifically Pablo in my class or someone who's obsessed with horse riding that's a bit disengaged. And it can do that. It can, explain macroeconomic policy with regards to horse riding because for me at school, that would have been amazing that I could get everything related back to surfing, because that's really what I wanted to talk about. You can do that with a GPT and the explanations are amazing, but this isn't offloading. Again, I'm viewing it. I go, share me the chats afterwards. I just want to check. But honestly, I'm not often seeing that they're wrong. They're pretty, because of what I'm not doing at university. I'm doing it from sort of 15 to 18. It can absolutely handle that.
I love that it gives you an opportunity to visualize their thinking and to see how they're thinking as you read through that script. And I wonder if that helps you to move them in new directions because you get to see their thinking.
Completely. But in the same way, in the same way that I see their thinking when I mark an essay. So we balance. Yeah. And I would get more from giving them a past paper exam question. Of course, I learn more from marking an essay. But marking an essay takes a long time. And the reality of being a teacher is it's blooming hard and you work long hours. So I'm using this. I'm not getting rid of the essay marking, but this is maximum output for minimal input that I can get this. And I suppose it does give me the freedom. The essay, I choose the essay. because marking 20 different essays is even more time consuming. But what they can do, it gives them that ownership over which GPT they're going to look. And that tells me something as well. If I find all of my class are looking at Unit 1 knowledge, then I probably need to top up their knowledge on Unit 1, or they're all looking at applications. So the fact that they get to choose, that's pretty useful.
So yeah, so I think it really, I think it's so many opportunities, and that's just the GPTs, but you don't have to go to the GPTs. It can help with so many other things. We've got the voice, we've got the video.
I saw that you have a resource. I actually used it in a webinar from your tutoring site, and it gave the steps for creating GPTs. So we'll share that, if that's okay, in the
Brilliant.
show notes, because I think that's such a great, I think the question is, do you pay for the GPTs? Do you do it right in ChatGPT? Does it get sent directly to you, or do you go get them? How the logistics and the streamlining work with that?
To create a GPT, to create one, you need the paid account, which is 20 euros. So the basic level paid to create one. For most people, and then it's a little bit more technical.
I'd used Poe before to create.
Okay.
But you only have a certain number of chats and then you pay. But you're saying with ChatGPT, with the full payment that you can use, it's unlimited usage of each of those chats?
You can make millions, and I probably have. I've made hundreds of them. You can make as many GPTs you like, and hence, because I've got access, to the paid version, I can keep making them, one per person. But that you can share them in different ways. You can put them in up for sale, which I don't do. You can actually put them on their Access Forum ChatGPT, or you can have them private, or you can have them just public, and you can look in like a shop of them. But once you've created it, if you just want to put it for general public, anyone, as long as they log in, that's the thing. So as long as they log in for free, you don't need the paid account, but you do need a login.
So you pay it to create, but you can use the free to use it.
Free
so
to use.
The student can use it.
Exactly. And so that's the beauty to this.
The conversation is not limited then. It can just...
That's the annoying part, but I think they're looking at changing that. So at the moment, I'm in the OpenAI forum, and they said it's about 30 to 40 back and forths.
Okay.
I'm not finding that. I find it's much less.
See.
I'm finding it's about 6 or 7 back and forth. Now, that irritates me. Now, if the child is paying, which I don't think they should be paying, then they wouldn't. They would be able to keep going. But if you're using the free version, it's about 6 or 7. Now, that's annoying, but at the same time, I actually haven't found that to be a problem with the children. And I get all of my children. They don't have to. I always have an alternative, non-ChatGPT. But I have to say, at my school, everyone has already got an account and they're happy with it. But I always give an alternative. I don't want to force it on anyone because it's the surefire way for them to hate it. But all of mine use it. And I'm actually not finding that any children are having much of a problem with that, because that's probably about the right amount of time. Now, if you use your back and forth chat quickly, if you've only got 5 of them, if you say, some of mine are set up to give 5 questions. If they go 5 questions and then they answer question 1, return, it'll mark it. Question 2, return, then you'll quickly use it up. But what I'm getting my children to do is don't do that. Put it in another window, put it on a Google document, get your 5 questions, answer all your 5 questions in one block, and then put it in as one return. Because of course it doesn't, you can put 100 questions as an answer.
Characters aren't limited. Yeah.
And therefore you've got lots and lots of access to those things. Having said that, children are children, and I would deal with 18-year-olds. In all of this, they also have multiple accounts because they just set up another email. They're finding other ways around it because they are finding it useful. So they've got like another email address of a free account.
Cool.
So they log out of one and then they use it. They are also using proxies to get all around these. No one's paying for it. I haven't got any children who are really paying for it. But I think it's probably the right amount of time anyway. Little and often is what I say is better. We don't really want them sitting chatting to a chatbot for 2.5 hours. So this little use case of being on the bus for 15 minutes, have 5 chats back and forth on the bus. I'm trying to get that idea of these are great for little and often. These are the extras, the top up. I would say get your mum to help, which my children can't get help with. That's one of the things that my mum would have helped with. But I live in Spain and the children do the exams in English. So the parents don't speak English. And we all know it'd be really helpful if you could go, Mum, just ask them 5 quick knowledge questions before they go out to the party. Just get them to ask a definition. The parents I have at my school can't do that. They don't speak English.
Right.
So suddenly I've got this tool which they can get that help. Just a quick 15 minutes, someone checking in on the syllabus.
Right.
And it's a game changer for me. And equally, I've created them for the parents as well, because the parents don't speak any English. I've created GPTs to explain to Spanish parents what is an A-level, what is an IGCSE, because it can swap languages, and I can say, imagine you are from the Spanish system, so it can compare the parallels between the Spanish system, all of which can reduce my time, because previously I'd have to explain that to a parent each time at parents' evening. An A-level is this, blah, 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 blah. Now I can say, of course, I'll still have a conversation. We're not getting rid of conversations. But often in a 10-minute parents meeting, I can't fully explain it. I can say, this is what it is, but if you're still not understanding, here is a specific GPT designed to translate between Spanish and English and the system. So there's just so many little tools which are really quick, and they sound complicated to do, but they're not. And I can just share the link with them.
I love it.
I'm a big fan of them.
I love it. And then one more question. Beyond the GPTs, you started to talk about some other usage that you're finding are super beneficial for students.
Yeah. Where do you go? There's just so many benefits of it. If you're looking at it from that formative approach in the classroom, we have to be careful. But now the speaking that's coming through, and it's a bit slower here, but if I'm leading it with my phone, and I've got multilingual children at my school, the videos coming through, and again, data, you've got to be careful with all of these sort of things. But it can now record a speech. I used it, so many use cases, that's all the videos. But even for me, like a little case with the video, I use it for my classroom. I wanted feedback on how's my classroom, how's my poster display. Yeah, I can have a senior manager come and do that, but that's not a very nice approach. And who's to say they're right? I just did it on the last day of term. I got it to video my classroom. I just held it up and I said, be an expert in classroom. What do you think? And you don't even really need to do the prompt. I said, what do you think of my classroom?
Interesting.
Now? And it said, this is nice, because it's always going to be nice. It generally likes to be nice.
Yes,
but I said, come on, be critical. And it said,
yeah.
you could have more children's work on display. And I'm going, oh yeah, that's a fair point. And those seats over there, can it really see the board? Yeah, it's that good. And so, yeah, I just showed the video around my room, and it gave me such a meaningful feedback, which didn't hurt my feelings because it's impersonal. I'm a sulky thing, I guess, still. We all are as teachers, big opinions, that if a senior manager comes in and goes, why didn't you change that? And I'll go, it's easy for you to say, you're not teaching. But I don't take it personally with ChatGPT. Or I hold it over my worksheet or my lesson plan. What do you think of this? It's great for that collaborator. That just giving me, not to save me time. Of course, it makes me more time, but
just to validate or push forward. And it goes back to what you were saying before, chatting, because this really was a little bit of a barrier, having to know prompt engineering. But I remember we had Darren Coxon on our, I think you have on our podcast a few months ago, several months ago. And he mentioned prompt engineering. He said, actually, I don't think that's going to be a thing anymore, but breeze through that. And he's right, because you don't need to. I've actually said, I've gotten a response. I'll say, tone it down or make this better. Just simple, like one word prompts, I'll tell it to do instructions, and it knows exactly what I'm talking about. I also use a lot of speech to text, so sometimes something comes in wrong. Oh, like, that didn't make sense, but it doesn't matter. Figured it out. Super intuitive. It's so easy to use. So yeah, to get a handle on it and understand it for the first time, use some of those pre-made prompts. That's great, but don't feel like that's the only way you can communicate with it, because it works much better when you just dialogue, chat with it, exactly as you said. And I also started using AI with Pi. I don't know if you've ever used Pi before, but the developers of Pi were actually poached by, I can't remember, was it OpenAI? I guess it was. And you'll see it's more conversational. And now you'll see a lot of these other tools have become more conversational as well. And that's really where it allows people to feel more comfortable with it when they can actually talk with it and dialogue with it, which is really nice. It makes it more authentic.
Yeah. Yeah. That's with, like, going back to what you said, that's actually probably what launched me, if I get the title of expert, which I shouldn't have, but that's what launched me right from the early days. When I set up the company, I did an experiment. We're talking about, I don't know, in the first month of it coming out, ChatGPT. So I know AI actually predates this, and I think that's where the term prompt engineering actually comes from, really.
Right.
Is pre-ChatGPT.
Yes, you're right.
But when it first came out, as in available to all teachers, non-techie like me, heard about it, I was using it for the business, but I just did an experiment with my class that got published in its ISTE. I wrote an article, it got published there, and it went viral, and that kind of got my name out there. But what I did was an experiment. It was with my year 8 class. I'll just run through it fairly quickly with you, because nothing has changed. I did two weeks into it, or a month into it, and it's still true to this day. But I set a homework, and I said, work out the effects of global warming. It was a geography lesson with my year 8. So this is year 8, so like 13-year-olds. And I said, you can use ChatGPT for your homework. Controversial, of course, in the early days. Oh, it's only for cheating. They couldn't believe it. And I said, no, use it and find out the effects of global warming. They went away. And then I said, hand the homework in. Really interesting what I discovered with my class, that they essentially broke down my children of age 13 into 3 categories. There were the lazy ones that we all have, and these are unfair terms, but we know a normal class of those. Within those, the lazy ones, they had just said, tell me the effects of global warming. And it had churned out, because this is early days 3.5, the free model, which wasn't very good.
Right.
But 3.5, that had churned out like 3 pages. And I said, I want you to hand in, the screenshot of that. It wasn't just what you did. I want to see the screenshots of your chat. Didn't make that clear. Apologies. But I want to see that. And the early days, they said, say this, and it churned out 3 pages. And they handed that in. Pretty nonsense. The really good, conscientious ones in my class, they were the interesting ones. The hard workers, they'd gone on the internet, as you'd expect. Even at 13, they'd found out all about prompt engineering. They'd given it role, all of those different things that was the hype. And they got a really good half a page of information, really a great output of half a page. But then there were the other ones in the class who were, I would say they're probably entrepreneurial. The bickerers in the class, I called them, but the ones who like to question everything I say, but bright minds. What they'd done is they didn't go on the internet and look up how do you prompt engineer. They just got on and chatted, and they went back and forth. And they gave me like screenshots of maybe 4 pages of them saying, what's this global warming? And it said, okay, this is the thing. And then they started saying things like, yeah, but is it really doing that? Arguing in the same way they argue with me, critically, being critical of it. Back and forth. And it said, you know what? There's quite a lot of evidence that this is going to happen. Back and forth. Now, I got all of that. The homework, you would say the middle one was the good piece. But here's the bit that I didn't tell them. I said, when you come back the following lesson, instead of giving them the answers, I said, you're going to have a test. You're going to have a test on the effects of global warming. Didn't warn them about it. I said, now sit down, test on the effects of global warming. Now, the top group, the second one, the very clever, having a meltdown, you didn't tell us about tests. You can't do that.
Right.
What happened? The results were amazing. They really were. The lazy people who'd given me 3 pages, they wrote absolutely nothing. I just said, write down the earth now in test conditions, no books, the effects of global warming. The lazy people wrote absolutely nothing. The hard-working prompt engineers, they wrote like a line and then sulked and wrote next to nothing. Terrible. The ones who bickered genuinely needed more paper. They said, I need more paper here, because they had so much to say, because they'd engaged in conversation.
Yeah.
They'd understood it. And I said, this is it. This is a learning tool. Not if you're doing prompt engineering right from the start. I hate it. It's good for efficiency. If you're trying to save time, if you want a quick email on low level, then yeah, maybe prompt engineering. But if you're using it for efficacy, as in to make you better, to improve your learning, you don't want speed in that.
Right.
You learn by bickering, by going back and forth.
Yes.
And then, so I wage war on prompting it as like, yes, it's good for efficiency, but in the classroom, I don't want talk of prompt. I want you to just chat right from day one. So all this time now, 2 years, I always say, if it's IT teachers who want to teach efficiency, talk about prompting if you like. But for my subject, humanities, I want to see conversations. I want you to say, good morning. I know that's awful to treat it like a human. There is negatives of that, but that is a learning curve. There's a controversial in there. So we won't go into that, but it does get good output. And that conversation argue with it. And that's how I speak to it. I bicker with it.
Yeah.
And my children do the same. And that really, I find, helps their learning.
I
So
love that experiment, so to speak, that you just
Yep.
described, because I love the quote, talking is thinking. And I think this is really that dialogue. You're restricted with true prompt engineering. And sure, it could have its place, like you mentioned, where you can get something succinct that you're looking for. But if you really want to peel the onion and dig a little deeper and learn from, there's metacognition involved in that conversation that's going on. And that's
Absolutely.
not happening when there's a prompt, right? So unless they start with a prompt, which isn't a bad approach, start with the prompt and then go into the bickering, right?
I mean, it works for everything. It's so many good ways to use it. But I just think if you get a good prompt, then it kind of can give you a kind of bit of a personalized, but a Wikipedia page. And most of us get bored of that. We'd much rather a conversation than, I've got a lovely page of information. We're not too programmed for that, adults included. We don't really like that. We'd much rather have a two-way back and forth. And that's what generative AI offers. We've had the internet, we've had summative, nice summarized, but AI offers two-way, and that's incredible. Maybe I'm overexcited because that's how I learn.
But it's true. And having that dialogue, because not only can they answer back, but it's also about asking questions. I know when I use it, it makes me think of 5 other questions to ask that I didn't think to ask beforehand. The point of it is that we want students to innovate. We want them to think outside the box. We want them to solve problems. And this is a means to getting them to that type of thinking. And if teachers are using it in that way, or students using it independently in that way, they're going to get there, and their thinking is going to change. And so I think all of the different ways that you are leveraging it and showing it off for people so that we can get some good ideas is golden. So helpful. So you have your tutoring website, which I think has resources on it.
Yeah, because I've moved it because it was originally only about peer tutoring. And I'm saying it meets my objective by sharing GPTs and sharing resources. So yeah, I'm putting and I'm doing sort of various AI courses on there as well for people.
Okay.
I'm starting to test with that. So yeah, I'm putting quite a lot of AI stuff on there as well. So it's not just peer tutoring, and that's aimed at teachers and at children. Because purely I feel like I can make more of a mark. The peer tutoring can help a few people, but if the work, I don't know I'm shocked. How is every teacher not talking about these GPTs? I realize I sound insane, but I'm like, are you not using this in your lessons? So I'm on a bit of a mission to try and persuade people.
And here's the thing too, because you also, there are some things that you touched on that we didn't get to dig into, which I think presents some barriers. Sometimes the dangers of anthropomorphizing. We also have the equity issues where, I've said some things that have been relayed to me in an AI tool that seemed kind of off, very off, right? So there are those. And then there's also the age. So young teachers of younger students, they're kind of moving about their own way and not as affected by this because kids can't really use it independently. They can use it for themselves, maybe to change the lexile level of different readings and things like that. But to actually create GPTs, they can't do that because that's not allowed for students, as you mentioned, under 13. But you have year 8s and you're 13 and older. Yeah, you can use it all the time.
But you're absolutely right. I sound like all pro AI. We have to be cynical. These are companies with lots of money, so I'm not. That's what humanities do. We think critically of these things. We shouldn't be coming in and I make it sound when I talk about it's all incredible. No, there's loads of disadvantages, exactly like you're listing.
And then the privacy and security, which is why the age restriction is there, which is I didn't mention that as one of the biggest barriers. Yeah. And so what I like about it, though, is that you are using there are some tools that we still don't know if they are being protected. And when districts are going in to make district-wide purchases, there are lots of questions you have to ask of vendors. And so what you're doing is you're using from the bare bones of stripped down the basic version, not basic, they're high end, but
the free,
you don't the free, and then your individual subscription. So that's ways to get around it, and for at least teachers to explore and dig in, because guess what? If you have students who are 13 and older, they're using it anyway. If you have students who are younger than 13, it's being pushed into other apps that they're using. Regardless, AI literacy has to be the first and foremost that's happening for teachers and for students, and then to expand and actually integrate it into lessons in authentic and meaningful ways. That's when, can take the time, and it's a little easier for teachers of older students. But yeah, I think this is all great. So your website, but then also you have a YouTube channel, and we'll share that, right?
Yeah. I link it to the website there as well,
Okay.
with me going through the videos, because you're absolutely right. It has to start with AI literacy. And some people don't like that term, but the understanding of the bias and those sorts of things, really important. I don't think that's insurmountable, though. I think kids are pretty good with critical thinking. I think and just simply with what I would do is, in all my classrooms in my school, because we run AI, we just have a whiteboard, one space in our classroom, in each of the classroom, where we write up all of the bias, the mistakes that AI makes.
Oh, that's great.
Problem of AI is when you believe it, when you think it's infallible, when you think it's perfect, that's really dangerous. So what I do is get out there and use it, be cynical of it. Let's find it being sexist, because that's coming from humans, but let's find examples. And when you get those, we write them up on the board and we keep them in front of people, because if you don't talk about it, the children are going to start believing it. So by promoting, and it can be as simple as that, just having a whiteboard in all of our classrooms at our school now, we have a zone, all of the mistakes, like strawberry spelled wrong, which is updated now. But we got that. When we hear something about it, a kid comes in, and kids love to find the mistakes, of course. When they, it told me this, write it up on the board, because then it gets them to question it. The danger is when you're using AI literacy and they think it's perfect. So we got to rip that.
Oh, I love that.
I talk about a lab coat in AI literacy. If you think it's some professional doctor that wears a lab coat, then it's dangerous. But if you rip that lab coat off and go, it's got mistakes, then it's a lot healthier the use. So yeah, I talk about, and I think that's the starting point of AI literacy, and I go through that on the website as well. Yeah,
I think you did a YouTube on that. I think I actually saw that. I love the bias tracking. I think that's brilliant. I love it. And not expose it. And again, like you mentioned, having the students be a part of that exposure is golden, because they will go on a hunt for it as well. So that's
exactly.
great.
And when you want
know
that,
it.
we don't want to be defensive of it. I say I like AI, because my phrase I like is, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. It's not perfect. There's loads of big problems with it. But if I can help a child, okay, it might have messed up the summative, but we spoke about that earlier. You know what? Stuff that I don't like summative in education anyway. I know it's necessary. There's a whole other talk about why it's necessary, but that's another podcast that I've spoken about. But I don't like that as a teacher. I just want every child that I teach to do the best. And if I can create a GPT that gives that child who doesn't have much money, doesn't have language at home, a little bit of extra help, and it's possible. That's what I got into teaching for. Yeah. I think there's potential there. And I'm not going to dismiss it because it made cheating on an essay or whatever. We'll change the essay.
Yeah, exactly. Let's think about how that was really effective to begin with. So absolutely. Oh my gosh, Jack, thank you so much. This was just really exactly what I wanted. I wanted to hear all of your tips and tricks. There are so many things that we hear about that are being implemented in great ways, but then you lifted up the hood a little bit and allowed us to see how it actually works and how we or others in the classroom can actually make it work. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. And again, we'll have all of your great resources in the show notes so people can learn more.
Brilliant.
Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. And if you would like to stay linked up, be sure to follow us on Apple and Spotify, and subscribe to us on YouTube.